Following all of the backlash of Grok undressing women and children on Twitter, action has finally been taken. But it's kind of weird. If you're not caught up on this situation, this is what's going on. Grok, Twitter, and Elon Musk have been under fire recently because people have been using Grok to make sexualized images of children, and they've been using it to undress women by typing just a few words into Twitter and tagging Grok. And they'll say things like, Grok, put her in a bikini, or Grok, turn her around. Grok would create these photos and it was making people feel, well, like this.
Someone replied to me and asked Grok to put me in a bikini. I feel like violated seeing it because it's like I didn't consent to this. This is like a picture of me like just doing a cool makeup look and people are stripping me. There's so many places online that you can do this, but the fact that it was happening on Twitter with the built-in AI bot, it just threw me off. Like my family follow me on there, my friends, my co-workers. So knowing that all the people I care about in my life can see me like that, it's disgusting.
So that's the gist of it. Elon started facing a lot of pressure from regulators, lawmakers, especially in the UK, and a lot of users, which forced him to make a change. So this is the change. At first, it looked like Twitter put Grok's image generator behind a paywall, but that's not actually what happened. What they did was they restricted one specific way of using Grok. They made it so that you can no longer tag @Grok in replies and have it publicly generate or edit images unless you're a paying subscriber. So basically people can't do the public Grok put her in a bikini thing unless you pay for X Premium. If you try and you're not a paying subscriber, you're met with this message telling you to subscribe to X Premium, which gives the impression that Grok's image tool is now paywalled. But that's a little bit misleading because if you're a free user, you can still generate and edit images using Grok. You could still click edit image on photos, you could still use the Grok tab, you could still use the Grok website or app and do all the same stuff. And according to testing from The Verge, Grok will still comply with any image generation, including explicit ones, even on free accounts. So the only thing that really changed was the visibility, not the capability of Grok to produce these images. And don't get me wrong, that is a small step in the right direction. It reduces how often this shows up directly in the timeline. It adds some friction, and friction is very important with these types of things, so it doesn't get mass spread all over social media. Before this, anyone could just grab a photo off your feed with zero effort and publicly ask Grok to sexualize it, with zero resistance from Grok. Now at least that specific behavior is harder to do out in the open. And after everything we've seen over the past few weeks, I mean, I guess a small win is still a win. But let's not pretend this actually fixes the core problem, because that method of how people were using Grok was definitely a problem, but the bigger issue was that Grok can still generate these images in the first place, despite knowing that it shouldn't and even apologizing for it. So what X or Twitter is basically saying is that, yes, this behavior is bad, but it's not bad enough to fully stop. It's just bad enough to kind of move it out of the public view. Because whether you're a paying member or not, the tools to keep making these deepfakes are still there, and that makes it feel less like a moral decision and more like a business decision. Especially when you consider that Grok usage and interest has exploded because of this controversy. They are seeing more downloads than ever with all this publicity. And that tells us something important. It tells us that Twitter agrees that these AI image deepfakes were really a problem, so much of a problem that they want to hide it, despite the people who so adamantly defended Grok's ability to generate these images, including the people in the comments of my last video. But it also tells us that they only care about the illusion of a fix. As with most things, it's a big publicity stunt. Instead of removing the feature, they limited how embarrassing it was. Now, any Joe Schmo can't reply under a woman's post and ask Grok to put her in a bikini, which makes the platform look a lot less disgusting from the outside looking in, and it kind of calms the outrage. But it doesn't actually change the fact that Grok is still a gross little freak producing harmful content. Because like I said before, it's been confirmed that Grok can still undress people without their consent. So I mean, from a business perspective, great move. You still get more downloads for Grok, and the people who want to harass women publicly in the replies will just need to pay you to do it. But human to human, it's still a bit uncomfortable, especially now that this whole controversy has brought so much attention to this feature, and it doesn't start and end with Grok. Google's Gemini and OpenAI's ChatGPT can also undress people when you ask it a certain way. And this is turning into a whole censorship conversation about how Elon is under attack for his platform's free speech. But that kind of thinking kind of ignores the elephant in the room. The deepfakes were running rampant on Twitter, one of the largest social media platforms in the world. Like it or not, that is different from someone doing it in private through an AI chatbot. It doesn't make it acceptable by any means, but obviously, It's a lot easier to deal with the big public-facing problem first, even if we know that at the root cause of all of this is the fact that these AI models have the ability to produce this content when they shouldn't. And yes, Grok can do plenty of normal, useful things. People aren't only using it for deviant behavior, but the feature that caused the problem originally was not meaningfully fixed. So yeah, I guess this is progress, but it's definitely not closure. And I'm glad action was taken. I'm glad pressure worked. And I'm glad that this behavior is harder to pull off publicly than it was before. But I don't think we should clap too hard for a solution that mostly hides the problem instead of eliminating it. If anything, this whole situation is another reminder of how big tech companies tend to operate. They build things first, they apologize later, they minimize the fallout, and then they just move on. And as users, the only leverage we really have is weaponized outrage and refusing to normalize this stuff. So yeah, small win, still weird. But for now, I'll take fewer people casually using AI tools to sexually harass women or generate CSAM on one of the biggest platforms in the world. But I'm curious to know your thoughts about all this. Let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching. Shokin!